Hello, hello, hello. How are you, Yasmin?
I'm good. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
I sure can. I'm doing good, good, good. I'm trying to set this up where I think it's streaming on Facebook at the same time, but I may end up, depending on how many come in, I may turn it off. At least we'll have more privacy in the Zoom room. So hold on just a few minutes. Okay, I see somebody is watching live on Facebook. So look like I'm gonna have to do it both ways. But no worries. Hello, cousin. How are you? I see you are watching from Facebook. And we are going to go ahead and get started. Let's see who is that. Okay, I see you look like Whitney is in there as well. How is everybody doing? Y'all had a good Easter? I didn't do too much of anything. Just kind of chilled a little bit and relaxed as usual. Went outside on the patio and enjoyed my sacred space. So that was a biggie for me. I know I was telling everybody else, be sure to go and enjoy your sacred space. And because I know that when we do that, good thoughts come to us and it helps us to decompress from a rough week if we had a rough week, and it helps us to basically get our marching orders for the upcoming week. And so I enjoyed that. It was so peaceful and so calm outside. And so I hope you got your sacred space time in. Okay, today is our second meeting of 2021, and I want to start off with um, just talking about overwhelm. I know the pandemic has caused us to have, some stressful moments, and if we haven't been affected personally, we know people who have been impacted by COVID and just all of the issues that come along with dealing with a pandemic, something that I have never lived through before. And I know most of you probably haven't lived through a pandemic like this before either. I heard someone say the other day that the amount of sadness that they have seen has just been overwhelming for them. And overwhelm is one of those words that I continue to hear over and over again. I'm overwhelmed. Or even if the person can't articulate the word overwhelmed, basically that's how they're feeling. They're feeling like they're dealing with a whole lot. And when we think about our goals, even though there is a pandemic, we are still expected to get, our goals done. I mean, we can't just stop living because of the pandemic. We still have to go on and make things happen, because if we don't, then our life will be at a halt and we won't move forward and things won't get done like they should. And even we know that eventually the pandemic is going to pass, right? And when it passes, we want to be positioned to move forward and to still be successful in the things that we are called to do. Hold on just a second. I'm trying to see how I can um, get this view back. Okay. Okay. There we go. And so I felt that one of the topics that we need to deal with is feeling overwhelmed. I know a lot of states are starting to relax their COVID rules. And so people are feeling comfortable about moving around and getting back out and doing the things that they were doing before the pandemic hit. Even in our neighborhood today, we saw a lot of cars at various homes in our neighborhood. And Miracle was like, golly, people are already packing up in their houses. Yep, they're already start trying to return to what they feel is normal. And but I feel like we still got to proceed with some caution. I don't know about you, but I'm not in a hurry really to get back out there. I'm still gonna mask up, and all of the above, because the CDC is basically saying that there will be another wave coming, and so I still feel it's wise to protect yourself. Okay, I am okay. My cousin says she's relaxing today. She took her brother a care package. Wonderful. Yes, yes, yes. I believe in getting that rest and relaxation in. I'm trying to pay attention to the comments this time better than I did on the first call out, the first meeting. I was so on a roll trying to get ready to get through the content until I didn't get through the comments. So I'm trying to pay attention to those a little better. So even though there's a pandemic, you all, our goals still matter. You know, I get up every morning, there's still things that I have to get done, because that's just the business of living. And so goals still do matter, even in the midst of a pandemic. You still have stuff that you're working on. I see some of you in the group posting or talking on, or maybe your own personal Facebook page, and I can see that you're still doing things. You're still having to go to work, or you're still having to get up and make money. You're still having to go and take care of, you know, if you have your own business, you got to get up and make that happen every day. And so I still see many of you that are still about your goals. You're still about your business, and you haven't let the pandemic cause you to become paralyzed or distract you to the point where you've gotten off course. Setting the right goals, and we know that we have to set the right goals. We have to have a plan to reach those goals, and then we have to follow through on what is required to reach and maintain those goals. And then once we maintain those goals, we experience a greater sense of happiness, right? And we feel fulfilled when we achieve our goals. It feels so good to get to that finish line, especially if you have been wrestling and tussling with a goal. And right now, it can be challenging trying to achieve these goals when, you know, many places are still trying to emerge from lockdown and caution and all of that. Even though goals can create happiness, goals can create a sense of fulfillment, and we look back and we see how far we have come. I was talking to someone today, and I was sharing with them how when me and Grover got married, how we started out in this 1-bedroom apartment, and our furniture was from like a secondhand store, a used furniture store, and our sofa, we had these old outdated end table and a coffee table that looked like it was from the Sanford and Son junkyard. But we was so happy, you know, because to get your own apartment, it was kind of like, it wasn't in the, safest neighborhood, but it was ours, and we were so excited to have our own place. And I remember going to like Family Dollar, and I was to get some pots and some pans and some plates and some forks and knives, the little cheap set. It was ours, and that made us feel so fulfilled and so happy. And now you look at us, look how far we have come. But that was, it started as a goal. We knew one day we wanted to like own our own home, and we knew that one day we wanted to be able to live in a neighborhood that was much safer than where we live. But it started out as a goal, and then there was steps that we had to take. There was time, there was a preparation phase and preparation time that we had to endure in order to get to where we are now. And now it's like living fulfillment. But even in being in fulfillment, there is some responsibilities, and it's not always stress-free, right? And so when we're trying to achieve that goal, it can be stressful. It could be overwhelming. And a lot of times, even when you get to where you are desiring to be, you still may encounter some stress. And so the purpose of today's topic is to help us figure out how to master feeling overwhelmed, because we will feel overwhelmed. It's a natural part of life, is being stressed. And we know that trying to complete a goal, no matter how small you think it is or how insignificant, it can be a challenge and it can be stressful. Goals, when you're trying to create or complete anything or achieve anything, sometimes you're going to experience excessive pressure. And when you experience that excessive pressure, that's when the war begins. That's when we've got to figure out, am I going to, you know, am I going to throw in the towel and say, I surrender? No, we cannot, because a lot of times we've come too far. And so we can't turn around. We know that when you think about goals, a lot of times when you look at people come up with New Year's resolutions, a lot of times we know a lot of times people are not successful in fulfilling their New Year's resolution because it gets difficult at some point. And people just give up. They're like, I can't do it. It's overwhelming. I can't stay consistent. I'm experiencing so many temptations, and so they just throw in the towel and wave in the white flag and say, I surrender to it. So, what does it mean? What does overwhelm mean? Overwhelm is when a person believes that the stressors that they are currently feeling are too great to manage, and then as a result they become overwhelmed. Overwhelmed is when a person believes, now it may not actually be true, but it's when we believe that the stress that we're experiencing is too far great to manage. We feel like, man, there's no way I can deal with this. There's no way I can figure this situation out or work my way out of it. Overwhelmed, when we're feeling overwhelmed, it means there's like we feel basically completely, hold on you all, I gotta plug up my laptop, just a moment. Okay, sorry about that. I was gonna do the live outside on the patio, but the lighting was not good on the back patio, so I had to bring everything back in the office, and I forgot to plug up my laptop. But that's okay. When we're feeling overwhelmed, I know most of us know what that feels like. We know that we sometimes will feel like completely defeated. We feel like we feel overpowered in our emotions and in our thoughts. And what is the thing that is overpowering us is this thought or this vision that this is too much or I can't handle this. When we're overwhelmed, it feels like we are excessively burdened. Have you felt like that since the pandemic at some point? Or maybe now, you have moments where you go back and forth with feeling excessively burdened, or you feel like there's like a bunch of forces against you that's trying to stop you or slow you down. If you have felt that way, it's normal, especially when you're trying to achieve anything that's great, anything that's moving you up from one lower level to a higher level. Overwhelm is natural. But the problem is a lot of people, you know, we struggle with actually coming through that overwhelm phase. And it's usually experienced right when you're about to receive the breakthrough or you get to that breakthrough point. There is a picture that I shared in the group where this man was digging for gold and diamonds, and you all may have seen that post. And he would dig a little bit, dig, and then he would get frustrated and move on to the next spot. But the spot that he had previously been digging in, there was actually gold and diamonds below the ground. If he would just be consistent and not become frustrated and let the overwhelmed feeling consume him, he would eventually struck gold and diamonds. But sometimes when we don't see those immediate results, that's when we start walking in that entry and that doorway into letting overwhelm consume us. And if we can understand the dynamics of how overwhelm just the process of how we enter that door to it and how it eventually leads us to a place we don't want to be, then when we feel ourselves inching toward the doorway to overwhelm, we know to hold up, and say, wait a minute, I'm at the threshold of overwhelm. And if I don't get this thing together, figure out a way to overcome this, if I enter that door, I don't know if I'm going to be able to come back out of this situation in my mind. Because the mind is where a lot of Joyce Meyer is famous for saying this, that the mind is a battlefield. And a lot of times the mind will show us all kind of defeating pictures and try to give us limiting beliefs about our situation. But we're going to be a group that know how to overcome that. And we know how to speak back to ourselves and speak life to ourselves and realize that if I was not close to my breakthrough, I wouldn't be feeling so overwhelmed. And so I've got to figure out a way, and we're going to talk about the ways of how to get ourselves away from the threshold or the doorway that leads to just ultimate defeat if we cross that threshold into the overwhelmed feelings. Goals, we know, can be short-term, long-term, and a lot of times the short-term ones can happen pretty quick, but that's not to say that we're not going to have any feelings of overwhelm. Usually it's the long-term goals that really wear us out because it takes time. I know when we first was, had our apartment and then trying to go into a home, that takes time. It takes time to even get to that level, because you first got to see what it's like typically to, just pay rent consistently. And then after that, you've got to count up the cost of what it really takes to really be a homeowner. Because it's more to it than just, get in the home. After that, you are responsible for everything. You can't call the landlord. And so there is a process. And a lot of times, God uses those processes to develop us, to mature us, and to grow us up in areas that we didn't know that we were not grown up. I mean, we may be grown up on the outside, but mentally and emotionally, and just having that tenacity to withstand the overwhelm that may come with achieving whatever it is we're trying to achieve, we may not be developed like we should. And sometimes we got to pause and just thank God for the process, because that's what help us to stand like a tree that's planted by the water. Because when those winds come and blow, once you achieve that thing, you're going to be able to endure because you know how to walk out achieving a goal, long-term and short-term goals. Let me take a look at the comments right here. Hey, Nora, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you had a wonderful Easter today. And so don't dread the process of achieving a goal, because really God is developing some things in us. I want to know what are some things that you have experienced overwhelm in? Anybody in the comments want to chime in on that? What are some common experiences that you have maybe experienced, just feeling overwhelmed and you feel like I almost let go? I almost threw in my little towel and said, this thing is not going to work and I'm tired of wrestling with it. I give up. Anybody?
For me, I'll have to say working in general with my job. I don't want to say it like that, but it's like I have to make a certain amount of sales and for each quarter or whatever. So it was very stressful trying to keep up with the sales when the pandemic first hit. And they kind of relaxed on the goals for everybody. But then as things started picking back up, they expect you to then pick your workload back up and be able to maintain those goals.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's been hard because if you don't meet your goals, you don't get commission.
Right.
And so I, by the grace of God, was able to do it up until the last quarter of last year. But then going into this quarter, I missed my goal by like 5. And so I wasn't able to get commission. And with things still going slow, it's like, well, I'm not going to say they're still going slow, but it's kind of like still in the trend of picking up. But people are like, I don't want to purchase. I don't have money for that, which is understandable. So it's still kind of hard. And it's very overwhelming because I'm to the point where I'm just like, can I just find another job? I mean, I love my job.
Yeah.
but it's very overwhelming because we're still working at home. And you were talking about going to your safe place. I'm
Hmm.
already at home. That's what my
Right.
stress is also with work. So where do
Right.
I go?
So your sacred place probably need to be a place away from the house that's really beautiful, calming, and peaceful.
Well, right now it's the gym. So yes, but it's just
The
like, okay.
gym.
That's the only place that I really feel safe going right now. I'm working on it.
Oh my goodness. I know Virginia got some beautiful green spaces
They
like a
do. They do.
okay. It's just you don't feel safe yet.
I gotta
Okay.
figure it all out.
Oh my goodness. Maybe you need to go to the park and sit in a pretty park with a bench or something and just kind of like where you don't have to be near anybody, but it's calming, or maybe a body of water where they have a bench out there that you can sit on or
Right.
something.
I could definitely look one of those up. I'm sure there's somewhere nearby my house. I just haven't
Yeah.
ventured out to it yet. So
Yeah, that's another thing. If people, those that are working from home, they feel like, man, the house is my sense of my place of stress because this is where I'm working as well. And just sometimes being in that space can just make you feel all those emotions of what it feels like of having that goal that you got to achieve every, quarter. You got to meet so many sales. Now, sales can be stressful because commissions mean money, and money, if you're
right.
not getting
You're not getting it, then what?
that's it. So work, people are experiencing stress like you say at work because you got goals and obligations and expectations that you have to meet. Some other areas where people are feeling overwhelmed is relationship issues. um Other areas people are feeling overwhelmed, maybe there's a physical or mental health issues. A lot of people, if they're not going through personally with their health issue, they know someone that's dear to them that is going through a health issue. And then when you love a person and you see them suffering health wise, that is a feeling of overwhelm. And then to add to that, if that person is like a breadwinner, a earner that contributes to the household financially, talk about overwhelmed if they're not able to go to work and then they're not making the salary that they used to make. I mean, they may be bringing in short-term disability, but it's not at the level. Typically, it's like at what 60%. So now there's also a reduction in income in the home, and so that is overwhelmed. Other areas, yeah, you just talked about that, a demanding job. This is a big area. Some people don't have like financial goals or like quotas that they have to meet, but yet the job is still demanding, which is creating an overwhelmed feeling to those that are employees with that organization. A lot of people are overwhelmed because they have a job that they don't like, and then you got people that don't have a job and they're overwhelmed because they're needing a job, and it's just a strange situation out here. Financial distress and insecurity can cause overwhelm in significant life changes. I know some people that are experiencing some life changes, and as a result, they're having to like readjust how they move about every day because their health is causing them to have to basically sit down and figure out a plan of how they're going to leave the house every day, go do what they need to do, and come back home. If you have a significant life change, boy, that could be overwhelming. Time constraints, some people feeling like they don't have enough time, or people just feeling like too much time. Maybe they waiting on something to happen and just taking too long. And then, of course, the death of a loved one is one of those areas where people are experiencing overwhelm. Now, if I did not list an area that you feel is one that you've noticed that people are experiencing, put it in the chat. Or if you want to get in the Zoom call, you can click on the link in the post in the Facebook group, and then that way you can join the Zoom and we can hear your voice, so you can join the conversation. But it's up to you. Okay. Um, Overwhelm, if we don't deal with feeling overwhelmed, it can create health problems. If we don't deal with overwhelm, it can create physical problems. People are losing hair. My cousin said, you are so spot on. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Health problems, people will lose their hair. People, especially women, we've known women to lose hair. I remember a time in my life I was feeling overwhelmed. My hair was thinning out up here on this side, and I didn't know what was going on. And I'm like, but it boiled down to something that I was just like stressing over, and it was literally impacting my hair. And then some people lose weight because they're unable to eat, and then other people, they overeat when they are feeling overwhelmed. It's like a nervous energy that they're trying to deal with. And then some people do, they may go to a drug or alcohol trying to deal with just the pressures of feeling overwhelmed. um, Overwhelm will cause, it'll impact your relationships, because sometimes when you're overwhelmed, it'll cause you to go through these negative emotions. And if your loved ones are around you, they may not understand the impact or the intensity of the overwhelm that you may be feeling, because a lot of times, we try to stay in faith, and um most of us might be silent sufferers, where you just suffer in silent. You trying to just tell the Lord about it. And so until it just get to a point where you just feel like, I got to tell somebody, and by then you about to have a meltdown because you've held it in so long. And that is the point that I don't want us to get to, because we've got to learn how to master it, because we don't want to start having health problems because of these situations stressing us out, and we're trying to achieve things and just trying to live every day. Even if people don't really have, some real goals, just trying to live every day can be stressful and overwhelming. And so we don't want to be those that having those health problems, that we're snapping and having, those breakdowns. We got to catch ourselves, and we got to catch one another, right? And you may not be dealing with this right now, but down the road, you may be confronting with feeling overwhelmed. And so today we want to talk about how to walk that out, how to overcome that, and what that looks like. When you experience overwhelm, it feels all consuming. It will take up all of your being. It will take up your energy. It will drain you. It will age you. It will have you where you can't sleep. And when you try, and when you finally do get a little bit, you don't rest well, because even when you're tossing and turning, that thing is riding you, even in your sleep. And it's because in our mind, we have told ourselves, and we have believed ourselves in thinking that there is no way we can manage the level of stress. We feel that whatever we're dealing with is too great to deal with, and that is not always the case. We have to reframe the mind and reframe the belief system that we have in order to walk ourselves out of that. um, when you think on the defeated position of being overwhelmed, and that's all that you focus on over and over and over in your mind, do you know that that's what you begin to attract? It's like you get more and more and more of that, because that's all that you are focused on all day. All day you're going back and forth with that thing. Next thing you know, your heart, starts to move, beat fast, and then your blood vessels are constricting, and you know, you will be surprised, y'all. Have you ever worn one of those dots that show you how your moves are just shifting back and forward? I had bought some. Oh, I had to do a presentation once, and I had bought some, and you put them on. I was giving them out in the presentation so that people could track just how much they were changing, and the dot would turn certain colors, and it was like this master key that would tell you if it was black, this what it meant, and what have you. A lot of times we have lived in this body so long to sometimes we're not even sensitive to when our body is doing some things that it should not be doing. Um, whether it's breathing, you know, a lot of times when you watch Iyanla, she'll say breathe when people are dealing with something or trying to be counseled through something that's traumatic. A lot of times, do you realize we may not even be breathing, taking that in and out breath? Sometimes it could be a shallow breath, and then all of a sudden you'll gasp because it's like your body is trying to say, okay, you need to breathe right here. A lot of times overwhelming, even in that, we're not breathing in and out. I mean, a strong, good breath where you literally feel yourself feeling refreshed because you have literally breathed in through your nostrils and feel your chest swell up and then come back down. And you can sense the tension even in your neck, you know, and sometimes people are feeling like I got body aches. Sometimes those body aches are because you're walking around with stress and just feeling overwhelmed and it hasn't been really dealt with. Okay, let me move forward. Let's see what time is it? Okay, we hadn't even been on an hour yet, so we're still doing pretty good here. We cannot let overwhelm be unruly in our lives. We got to maintain some control over that. If we don't get a control over it, it will begin to affect our personal life, and it'll affect our professional life. Have you seen people on the job when they're feeling overwhelmed? They can't even think straight. I remember I worked with a person and they had so much pressure on them at work, they would be scatterbrained. And it was because the mind just give out under the pressure. And what that person really needed to do was to get in their car, leave for their hour lunch break, and go and sit. My place, I'll go down to the river in a minute if it's in close vicinity, or I'll go to a parking lot, and just sit and just decompress myself. Because sometimes these jobs can be ruthless in how they interact with their employees. And one thing we got to make up in our mind: look, it's enough stress in me trying to achieve my own personal goals on the side. I'm not gonna let no job and these issues affect me to the point where I don't feel myself about to pass out or faint under the pressure. I can't even think. And when we can't think, we begin to act irrational, right? We can't make good decisions because then it's like, oh my God, we're frantic or we're becoming desperate. And that is not the place of a believer. No, it's not. And when we think about Jesus in the garden, he was under some intense pressure, but he knew to go to his prayer place because that's really what really kind of brings us back and get us centered and to calm down. And we got to take off all these lies that our mind has told us, you're not going to be able to achieve it. Let me just throw that off. Maybe not in my might, but in the might of the power of God that can come in and move for me. I can do this. Let me check the comments. Okay. So let's go on to the next point that I have here. So we know that as I said, when we are overwhelmed, because a lot of times we may not be cognizant of what it is, we have anger, fear, anxiety. Sometimes it could be guilt, and then it could be depression. Sometimes it could be so difficult until it's even hard to understand or verbalize the exact source. Have you ever felt like that? People know something wrong with you, like, what's wrong with you? And you don't even really know at that point because you just know that you're irritable, you're cranky, and you're, short-tempered. And you haven't really sat down to figure out what it is. It could be just a buildup of a whole lot of things that you're dealing with. You haven't even given yourself time to sit down and process what is wrong. I know when I get in that place, I'll sit down and write what is wrong with me, and I'll start writing out the things that are bothering me. And a lot of times when you write it out, you'll begin to see what it is, and then you can develop a solution on how can I alleviate this, reduce the level of stress and tension or frustration that I'm encountering. But if we don't give ourselves that sacred space, then a lot of times we'll walk around with this heavy load, and we just basically swollen up with all of this weight until the body get to the point where it just cannot deal with the weight of it anymore. We got to deal with it. We got to fix that. Nobody is going to really fix it for us. We've got to live so sensitive to our own self and our own self-care to the point where we become our own physician, where we know when we're not right. We know when we're off balance. We know when we're not centered. We know when we have been having trouble sleeping and our appetite has changed. We have got to pay attention to our own vitals when it comes to that, because if we don't, we'll end up causing ourselves to have all these issues that come with not properly managing overwhelm and stress and what have you. You know, people ain't walking around here angry for nothing typically. A lot of times people are angry. We see them on the jobs. They're angry and they're mad and they rude to you and mean, and a lot of times it don't have anything to do with us. Those people are dealing with something. They could be overwhelmed, and it may not be nothing that on the job that's causing it, but they bring the home to work, and then everybody at the job ends up suffering too. So not only do we want to be able to recognize overwhelm in ourselves, we want to be able to recognize it even in the people that are around us, because you know we're here for one another. We're helpers one to another. And if I could do something to help, and I see something not right, I'll go and say, "Hey, are you okay? You know, that's not like you." And a lot of times that'll wake that person up to realize, "Hey, oh my goodness, I'm showing out at work." Okay, so now we've talked about the overwhelm. We've talked about how, you know, goals can be stressful, how achieving a goal is not going to always be done quickly. Sometimes it's a process of walking it out and learning the things that God wants us to learn along the way. So, what do we do? How do we overcome overwhelm? How do we keep ourselves protected health wise, strength wise, energy wise, where we keep our light, our glow, you know, that beams from us? How do we keep ourselves alive, basically, from the inside out, so that we are around to continue to fulfill the assignments and the tasks that God has called us to do? God did not call us to go through life and this thing kill us and take us out. No, 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 no. He did not. He did not send us here to suffer like this. But we have got to stay in communication with him on how to overcome this thing so that it doesn't take us out, so that we can be a help to other people when we see that spirit of overwhelm on them. We don't want to be scatterbrained out here making decisions. We got too many goals and things to achieve, and we need clarity. We don't need to be scatterbrained where we can't think clearly, where we can't even hear God when he's speaking because our mind is so bogged down with the things that we're trying to process or trying to achieve. So if you're feeling stressed, here's what we need to do. Or if you're feeling overwhelmed as it relates to your goal, you know, a lot of times we come up with all these goals and we come up with what, you know, goal for this. This is a goal. Then we come up with the steps of how we think we can, what we need to do to achieve that goal. But do you realize we never really put a step in there for to make sure we nurture our sanity? We never put a step in there usually to make sure we take time out to monitor our overwhelm level. We are real good about identifying those goals, and it, you know, it make us feel good, and we can just see ourselves achieving that goal, and we can feel how great we're going to feel when we achieve it. But we've got to remember that when we are constructing and creating and coming up with those goals, make room in there for you to check in with yourself by saying, okay, is this goal still achievable? Do I still feel that I can do this? Is this goal overwhelming me? Is this goal making me feel like I can't manage the level of stress that it is causing? Is my health improved or is it at risk at this point? Am I giving too much of myself without refilling myself? When we come up with these goals, we've got to take time in that plan to make sure not only are we assessing where we are with the goal, we got to assess where we are with ourselves. Because if we don't, you may not end up achieving that goal because you don't even have the health or the mindset anymore. You've snapped or just had a meltdown because we don't take the time in those steps trying to achieve that goal to make sure we take time to check in with ourselves on that goal. We got to go back and assess that goal and see, is it realistic? You know, if like if your job is like one job that I had, it was recruiting, and so many people they wanted recruited. Is it realistic? And if it's not, then maybe I need to go have that courageous conversation with my manager and say, look, considering the circumstances, consider the climate in the country right now, you know, is this goal realistic? And so if we don't sit down and assess, take those moments, not only, you know, self-care time, it is self-care time to check on ourselves, but we also got to have that, like that goal self-care time where we go back and see, is this goal realistic? Is this goal helping me? Is this goal stressing me out? Is this goal, because if it's not realistic, and then you got to assess, did God really tell me to do this? And if he did, then you will have the grace to fulfill it. If he did not, then we've got to make a decision. And hopefully that decision will be one that will preserve your health. If the goal is stressing you out and God has still called you to do it and you still believe it can be done, what can be done to minimize your stress? Do you need to like delegate some of the tasks? Do you need to break down a couple of more steps further into detail? Maybe you need to reduce the completion date or change it to give yourself more time. These are the things that we have to do. We got to go back and look at that goal and say, okay, I'm looking at you, you looking at me, and it feels like you trying to kill me and take me out, and I cannot let that happen. So let me sit down and reevaluate this goal. And if the goal is too severe, if the goal is about to take you out, honey, drop it and let it go, because we don't want you to be killing yourself on something that God didn't tell you to do. And if you are feeling overwhelmed and to the point that it's severe, but God has called, okay, we got to come up with another plan. Do you need to outsource something? Do you need to ask for help from girlfriends that may have a skill or resources that can help with that? Figure out a way of how you need to fix the situation or adjust it so that it can still be achieved and you still have your life, health, and strength. The other thing is we want to make sure we're setting right goals. We want to make sure that we're taking small steps sometimes. So I know we like to do things big and everybody telling us to think big and dream big and all that, and that's fine. I'm for it. I'm here for that. But we've got to make sure it's not going to kill us in the process. It's okay to step back and adjust a goal. It's okay to say, oh, I'm going to put that on hold for now. Do you know organizations do that all the time? When they have goals and objectives for that year and they see that it looks like it's just too many challenges or beyond their control, they will put that thing on pause or either they will just cancel it. I have seen them do it, and customers will be unhappy and nobody really understands what they're doing, or they will make budget cuts to try to save the organization. They will shut down departments because at the end of the day, they trying to maintain the organization. And if that means making adjustments that are hard adjustments, then so be it. We got to run our lives the same way. If it needs to be a hard adjustment, then so be it. If it could be a person. Do I need to cut this person off? Do I need to deal with them in a less invasive way? Maybe I could be too involved in this person and I got to back up because it is trying to suck the life out of me, literally. Is it draining me? You know, sit down and figure out what it is that's stressing you out and what can you do to adjust. And don't be afraid or ashamed if you have to just completely let something go. At the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you. Hold on, y'all. And I know that's hard to do. And sometimes you got to check yourself. You got to check yourself and let yourself know you doing the most and you about to hurt yourself. Or sometimes maybe we just not doing the right things. We're doing things, just not the right move. Next, this is a big one, and it's one that I really believe in. I believe in rewarding myself. When was the last time you rewarded yourself along the way of achieving your goal? I mean, really rewarded yourself till you literally felt the vibe of that thing come all over you to the point you felt it in your skin, you felt it in your belly. Reward yourself. Sometimes we trying to help everybody else and help all these other situations. We don't even reward ourselves with a treat. I believe in treating myself. You know, I learned how to treat myself in what I guess kindergarten. You know how when you're in kindergarten, they always talk about if everybody act good, we're gonna give you a treat. And they always had candy or something like that. And you remember how that felt as a kid? That felt good to receive a treat. And sometimes you have got to go and treat yourself. You put in all that hard work, exhausting all of that energy so hard, you kicking up dust like a racehorse. You have got to treat yourself. When was the last time you treated yourself to something really special? Something really nice? Not after you completed the goal. Sometimes you got to do it along the way to kind of rejuvenate your energy and your drive and to refuel you and refresh you. The next thing is how to overcome overwhelm. Sometimes you just got to go and get in that prayer closet and fall on your face and cry out to God. You've got to go in there and put on your worship, that song that really gets you into the presence of God real quick and just fully where you pour out. Sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you got to wait till everybody done left the house and you got to go all the way in. And I tell you, when you cry out before God about that situation, you get your breakthrough. That weight will lift up off of you. I know there have been moments in my life where I would cry out before God. And when I would just calm down and get still and quiet, I will something was the Lord will speak in my belly. And he would say, "You shall not be moved." And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's all. You shall not be moved. You know, we got to take that thing to the Lord in prayer. We have to help him to help us. We don't have to be tough all the time. I know I worked for this one lady, oh my goodness. And this woman, I could tell that she got down on her knees before the Lord. You hear me? Because I could sense when God would step in. Sometimes we would be confronted with a situation. She had this real high profile position. And a lot of times, I mean, it was pressures. And this lady, she knew she could not do it without God. And I could tell when God would kick in on a situation that we was dealing with, an issue, an opportunity that's really, a problem, but we like to call them opportunities so that we don't, give negativity to it. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, the situation would shift, and it would shift in her favor, which resulted in our favor. And I said, this woman, she must be on her face before God. And one day we was talking, and she told me, she said, people don't realize. She said, I get on my face and cry out to God before God every morning. Because I'm here to tell you, that's a lot of time. That's the only way we're going to make it through some of these situations. Because some of us, we have a great work. I think about Nehemiah. I was reading about him because he had a task to do. And Nehemiah, all these obstacles, people picking, people saying negative things. He felt overwhelmed by the work because it looked like it was more work than it was people or resources to get it done, and he felt drained. And then when it went from him just feeling overwhelmed from the work, Then it got to the point where family and friends started picking and saying things, but he overcame it. He had to realize, I'm not coming down. I have a great work. And a lot of us, we have that same assignment where it's a great work. And it's going to take God to help us get through it. And so, if whatever it is, whether it's a goal that your job has put on you, I have been under tremendous pressures on some of these jobs with the things that they have asked me to do. And anybody that worked with me will tell you that I have. And you know how I overcame? I would get up if it was early in the morning, and I would talk to God, or I'll be up when everybody's asleep in here in the office on my knees talking to God about it. And you talk about a breakthrough. You talk about the Red Sea opening up for you. A lot of times that's where the biggest shift will happen for us. And if you haven't been bringing that issue before the Lord and talking to him, maybe that's where the weakness is. Because we can't how are you going to fulfill something that God has called you to do or given you to do, and you're not in communication with him every day on getting your marching orders? Because some days he may tell you, fast, push your plate back. Or he may tell you, you need to intercede for that person. Or he may show you what's really going on behind the scene with the goal. He may show you. He may say the reason you can't achieve it because you're not consistent. You keep giving up. And so that is how we can overcome feeling overwhelmed. We got to walk this thing out and don't let these goals kill us. Because if it's overwhelming us to the point we feel like we finna have a meltdown, a breakdown, a physical breakdown, then it's time to put everything on pause. Go get in your sacred place and begin to pray to God and begin to assess the situation. Am I on target? Is this thing really realistic? Do I need to make adjustments? Do I need to call in some help? Do I need to call in the angelic host for some help? Those are the things that we have to do if we're going to achieve in the midst of dealing with overwhelm. I think on our ancestors, I think about all the great leaders. This whole topic has caused me to just think on people that was called to do something and they felt pressure. They felt like giving up. How did they overcome? And a lot of times these ancestors was dealing with way worse obstacles and constraints, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, but yet they still achieved. And a lot of them will tell you they had to tweak the goal. They had to, look at themselves and figure out what was going on with them. They had to call on the name of the Lord. They had to keep some spiritual practice in there. When you look at what's overwhelming you, what is the thing out of all I've said? Is it anything that I said that you said, that's what I'm lacking? Because if you're running on E, and I've run on E, I felt myself getting on E because I remember one time I was working a job. I was working like, it had got to the point where we were called to work 7 days a week. And I was turning in hours like 60 something hours, and I almost had got to the point where I had worked it was like I had worked almost 160 hours, and I would never think that was possible. But hey, I was getting up at like 4 a.m. and sometimes not going to bed until late at night. And I never thought that could be possible to work that many hours, where it's almost like you don't work 4 weeks in a 2-week period of time. But it was called for to get the job done. But the only way that I was able to have that fuel to do it, I had to stay in the presence of God, and he would reveal things to me, how to do things strategically and efficiently in the middle of the night. And I sleep with my cell phone sometimes next to the bed, because sometimes the Spirit of the Lord began to speak and I have to put it in my phone so that when I wake up, I already know what it is I need to do. And then having somebody that you can call on, whether it's your spouse, a family member that you can call on to help you. Because I remember one time I was feeling myself just like so focused until I couldn't hardly concentrate. My husband, he had to come and help me with a situation. I think he had brought me like an energy tea down to the office to help me because he knew I wasn't getting sleep because I was trying to get this thing achieved. So I'm not speaking to you from theory. I'm speaking to you from experience. And with the help of the Lord, the assignment that I was working on, I was always in the top 3. Yes. I was like, I think I was the only woman. Yeah, I was the only woman that kept coming in week after week, at least in the top 3. Sometimes I'd be number 1, sometimes I number 2, sometimes I was number 3. Never went below that. And what was really ironic about it is that I had a crash course on how to do it. This job that they asked me to do. But it was the help of the Lord. It was the anointing that came up on me. And it was me monitoring my mindset. Because you know your thoughts will lie to you sometimes. Your brain and my brain, it loves to take the defeated route. It loves to take the easy route. And that's just not how God wired us. He wired us to be achievers and champions. And so don't always believe what your mind and your eyes are telling you. You can have whatever you see yourself, believe yourself, and feel yourself having. And all those three things got to be in agreement and in alignment. You got to see it, you got to believe it, and then you got to feel it. You got to feel that it has already happened. One of the things about Jesus, whenever he was getting ready to help somebody, he always wanted to know, do you believe? Why did he always have to ask, do you believe? Because a lot of times that was the problem. We had limiting beliefs. And basically what you believe is how you see yourself. So whatever the goal is, you can do it with the help of the Lord. And just going back, figuring out you need to delegate some stuff. Is this goal killing me? Is it causing too much stress? Is it really something God wants me to do? Have I been checking in with the Lord on what the marching order is with this goal? That is how we deal with overwhelm. Don't let ourselves sit there and just go under. Every day we feel ourselves sinking and sinking. No, it's time to get up and go in that prayer closet and just cry out to God and get a plan together. Goals are more than just creating goals. We got to have a goal and a plan to deal with the level of stress and overwhelm that comes with achieving a goal. We have to take care of ourselves. All right, that is all that I have for you. And I hope that it helps you all. I have been thinking on it. I was asking God to please give me what he wants me to say to you all. I got up and was sitting on the patio early this morning, just seeking him and just thinking. I was going through the Bible of all the folks that had something to do for God and how they got overwhelmed. I thought about Moses and how he became so overwhelmed with the people until he missed going into the promised land. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's just how overwhelmed can just stop you almost at entering the promised land. And we become consumed and mess up because we are burnt out. And burnout will cause you to do some things that you would otherwise not do. And that is a danger. We have to assess and be on the lookout for overwhelm because it can take us places that we never thought we would be, or to allow things to happen to us that we never thought would happen to us. We have to be sensitive, watch over our own soul when it comes to overwhelm. I'm not gonna let you lock up my body. I'm not gonna let you I'm having headaches. I'm not gonna let you bother me to the extent that my hair is fine. Okay, something has to give. God wants to do the impossible through us, or what the world deems impossible. But with God, it's easy. And you can win. But we definitely got to check in on ourselves because we know when we're not really functioning like we should. We know when our body's having these unusual aches and spikes and, No, 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 no. Maybe we need to detox. Maybe it's a nutritional issue too. That's the issue as well. But take care of yourself. Don't let overwhelm take you out. Okay. I'm going to look at the comments. Anybody else have anything to add, to share? If you do, put it in the comments for those of you that are watching on Facebook. I think Yasmin is my only person in the Zoom group right now. Anything else, Yasmin? You got anything to add?
No, thank you though. That was very helpful. I'm gonna take some of your tips and definitely
Okay.
put them into place for this upcoming quarter so I can meet my goals and not be overwhelmed. And get it
Uh-uh.
together.
I was telling someone today, I said, you keep focusing on the view that they was focusing on is one where all they saw was the problem and them not what was stopping them from achieving what it is they're trying to achieve. And I was telling them, you too focus in on that. You've got to focus in on seeing the glass half full. Because if all we focus in is on that negative, it's like, oh my goodness, you just get more of it. And it's not always easy. I have to confess that it's not always easy because the brain wants to always go negative, which is the easy route. And we have to train that mind, nope, this is how I see it. And once you start bringing that mind into subjection and bringing it under control, then your life is going to start creating what you see positively. Because right now it's giving us the negative. Most people are experiencing that negative because that's what we see.
Right.
But we gotta say nope. And sometimes I will speak out. That's a lie. I will speak. That's a lie. I was like, that's what you see. I have to speak it out, girl, because it's like that mind be trying to run away with some wild things. And a lot of times you hear people say your life will take you where your mind is thinking.
Yeah, that is true.
So everybody be encouraged and don't give up. Don't wave your white flag. 6 months from now, a lot of us not gonna be in the same place. We're gonna be went on up higher, and we'll be able to testify and be a witness to anybody that we come into contact that's struggling with that spirit of overwhelm. Because there are a lot of people that are feeling overwhelmed. And you gotta shake that thing off and be like, I can't do it. I don't. Either God gonna help me, or either He's the truth, or this thing finna get exposed as a lie. And from my 49 years, God is the truth. He has delivered me from some Red Seas, fiery furnaces, the lion's den. I don't been through it. I may not look like it, but I have been through it, and it is all up here. All right. Thank you all for coming to the today's session, meetup number 2. We will pick up again next month on our next topic. And I pray that you all have a wonderful week. And I pray that today's subject will marinate in our minds and hover over us in the middle of the night and deal with us in the things that we should work on to shift and adjust our lives so that we can continue to move forward and achieve the goals that we are dealing with. All right. Have a great evening.
You too.
All right.